show there, Dave. Just briefly.
Or not.
It's kind of car related because it's DeLorean. Welcome to No Driving Gloves, everybody. You've got Derek, Dave, and John tonight. But 40 years ago today, the day we are recording, Back to the Future came out.
Oh.
Which, if that doesn't make you feel old, if we traveled today back as far as they did, the movie would still be 10 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
Although, it's interesting. They make 1955 look and feel older than it actually would if you were to really visit it. They deliberately skewed the architecture to look more late 40s, early 50s. So aside from the cars, the flavor of the town is really more immediate post-war.
Well, you have to remember the town isn't an urban center. The town is a small little burg, which probably isn't as up to date on architecture as New York City or Chicago. I don't know if LA was a big player really in 55. Well, yeah, I guess LA was a big player in 55.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, I could argue counterexamples based on what I know were going on in towns in Michigan of the same size in the mid 50s. But B, I'm quoting Robert Zemeckis when I say that. That's not my own thesis. He said they deliberately made it feel more old fashioned because when they started to use actual 1955 models for stuff, it felt too modern to 1985 eyes.
It would make sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like most of us probably went to one or more schools that were built in the mid to late 50s. Oh, goodbye, Derek. And they just, they don't feel super old when you look at them like all of that Art Deco 50s stuff. Now, my oldest, he went to an elementary school from 1939. And that felt appreciably older because it was like streamlined modern.
No, the grade school... let me get Derek back here. The grade school I went to was built, I think you're right, about 1960. And the high school I went to was built about 1963. The grade school is a big vacant building now. It was K through 12. I always thought it'd be a cool house. But the high school is still being used. It amazes me 60 years later, they're still using that. And the number of new schools I see being built everywhere. But it also goes back to the economy of Illinois, which most people will say is not the best. Which, on the topic of economy, I'm going to throw out here really quick. Back on episode 138 of No Driving Gloves, back when Will was part of the thing, we spoke to Johnny McDermott of Blueprint Engines. And I just saw an ad on Facebook that Blueprint Engines is having a warehouse sale. Everything must go. So here we are, July 4th weekend. If you need a crate engine, I guess now's the time to buy. I saw Will on Instagram, Big Oak Garage, unpacking a brand new Blueprint crate engine this week. So he's still using them, still stands by them. So see, if you're a guest on the show, we'll remember you and advertise for you.
So is he just clearing out some inventory, or is Blueprint Engines going away?
No, it's the 4th.
Oh, he's just 4th. Okay, so he's just the 4th of July sale.
Yeah, blueprintengines.com.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Derek was
the only people I know are after Model A engines, and I don't think there's a Blueprint crate engine.
An LS will fit in anything.
Yeah, but there's a cascade of issues that comes from that, and if I'm going to put an LS in anything, it's going to be the Cadillac.
Okay, well, I guess that's GM in your Model A. They also do Coyote engines, or modular
no, it's not
engines.
It's not a brand loyalty thing. It's an era loyalty thing.
But if you have Model A with your LS, then you can go to Chevy and Ford shows and piss everybody off.
Yeah,
you can't see my arms, and I still have to talk with my arms.
I'd like to counter the point that an LS will fit in anything. I don't believe an LS engine, but it will fit. It just won't structurally stay together in my Duragay.
No,
That's the Durier's problem, though. I think not the LS's problem. Besides, we just tube frame it. That's what I'm talking about, cascading issues, and then you end up with a tube
Yeah,
frame.
exactly.
Yeah,
I
and
think
then
the Duryea would have the same problem if you dropped it right into a Model A too, without doing any reinforcement. The first time you nailed it, the car's just gonna Lotus 30, change lanes, and twist into a pretzel.
Yeah.
well, and I mean, is the LS in the Duryea spinning the friction disc? I mean, imagine Derek pressing that on. Oh, he's
Derek
gone.
ran away. You blew his mind so much. He was thinking of the number of cows that he was going to go through with that leather plate clutch.
I don't know what it gets for miles per gallon, but it gets 3 hides per gallon or per mile.
Hey, that's the leather thing. Oh, and ironically, the next picture on my feed is Courtney Hanson, who was actually on episode. Give me a second here. I can look that up. Let's see. Oh. Maybe I won't look that up, but Courtney Hanson was on a previous episode. There she is, 228, back when she was doing Ride of Your Life and not Ride of Your Life, season 2. She's got a picture of her hanging out with Corolla, and I guess she's touting season 2 of Ride of Your Life, which for some reason I named the episode Ride of Your Life, but she's told me that that's not the name of the show that Will did. So, I don't know.
Interesting. What is Ride of Your Life? What's the premise?
Ride of Your Life was is a show Courtney does where they find like 10 different people that had their dream car and had to sell it for a litany of reasons, whether it be for medical needs or college tuition for the kids or something like that, where then she goes out and finds the exact same make and model of the car and they overhaul it, like on overhauling kind of, and then give it to the person. So it's a neat concept. Will did this. Will was the chief mechanic on the show prior to its current iteration, really the second season of the whole thing. Seems having a little bit of internet problems tonight, so he's bopping. It really is.
I'm just sitting over here thinking, I don't know if there's a car that I would necessarily want back. Like, that. So I have some regrets that I didn't get to do things with my Studebaker, but I don't ever find myself going, gee, I'd like to get another 50 Studebaker someday. I'd like to, kind of generally have another late 40s, early 50s car because I liked that. But even my Camaro, which, I had a ton of fun with in high school and such, and, courted my wife in, like, it was great. I have a lot of good memories of it, but I don't seek to buy it back. Now, my dad probably would have loved to have his GTO back, but I guess I just haven't formed that kind of relationship with a car. Have you?
Personally, I mean, I like my CRXs, but I don't have to have them back. If I wanted her to do something from my past, I would probably say my little Red Express. That I never finished the restoration. It was always 60% there.
That's close, but that last 40% is a real tough slog.
The last 10%'s the worst, but
yeah,
it was a money thing, and we did pull the motor and rebuilt the motor when I was in college at the local community college. Yes, Jason Derrick is having some internet issues or having some issues with StreamYard tonight. So I don't know if he's going to be able to rejoin us or not. I don't know how to fix that. Dave, what was your first car? Jason's asking.
My first, like, just general car was a 1986 GMC S15 Jimmy. So like the S10 Blazer, but with GMC trim and, I don't know, presumably some other items that were unique to it being a GMC. And I like the S trucks, but that was not a good vehicle, and kind of was responsible for me developing a love for older vehicles, because I was like, this 60 stuff makes sense. This 80 stuff is overcomplicated baloney and it breaks all the time. Had this transfer case on it that you'd shift it Thanksgiving so that it would be in 4-wheel drive by Christmas, and then you didn't dare shift it out again until Easter because you didn't know if it would re-engage. You know, there was nothing wrong with the actual parts, but just for whatever reason, nobody from the dealer on could ever get it to work quickly and reliably. Now, later on, we had a 96 S10 Blazer, and that thing was fabulous. That had electric shift on the transfer case and worked great. And I don't know, 96 was like a high point for GM build quality, but 86 was not, I guess. Our 83 Cadillac is good, but it's a Cadillac, you know? It's not a GMC.
Let's look at some of the ironies in your conversation here. You had an 86 S10 or GMC Blazer, S15 Jimmy. Blazer or whatever, Jimmy, yeah. You had a 94 or 96?
96.
96. It's slightly off there. The Little Red Express that I'm talking about, I traded my 1990 Blazer to the dealership for it and got money back in the deal. You would think trade a vehicle, you get, and you're getting money back, it would be quick. No, it takes just as long as when you're buying a car. So I had the 90 S10 Blazer. It was a great little truck. I don't know how. I can't remember what I traded to get that. I'd have to look at my list. John, what car have you owned the longest? It would either be the Little Red Express, or it would be the 62 Chrysler. I would really have to think about it. Right now, we're probably tied. We got the Little Red Express.
62, that's like the big as a whale model from the B-52 song.
I had the Little Red Express. I got it in 94, 95, and I got rid of it in 2011, maybe 2012. And I got the Chrysler from my dad in 08, and I still have it. So it's 13. And it's Little Red Express, got it by a couple years. Disappearing Cat. The Little Red Express is also, technically, it's the Little Red Truck. It said Little Red Truck on this badge on the side, and then said Express in the middle. But it was a truck Chrysler or Dodge built in 78 and 79 to circumvent the EPA. And basically they took in 78, they took a 78 Dodge Tradesman 150 pickup with a step side bed, the wood bed floors, put some wood slats on the side. They all were red, and they had gold badging that basically said Little Red Truck with the Express, as I just mentioned, and stacks behind the cab. And they were a 360 4-barrel, and it was the third fastest American vehicle sold in the U.S. in 1978, just behind the 928 and the Ferrari 308. So today, Toyota Sienna would kick its ass in a drag race. But it was because you didn't have to have cats, you didn't have to have any of the emission stuff. And it had round headlights in 78, 79. They went to quad rectangular headlights, and I had a 79, and the engine was restricted just a little bit more. But it just a very unique vehicle. It kind of had a sister in the Warlock, which was the same truck without the stacks, without the wood, without the gold trim, but they were painted black and had kind of the same performance of motor. So
Were those badged as Plymouths, the Warlocks?
no, they were Dodges.
Okay. Because there was a Plymouth version of the Trail Duster, I'm pretty sure.
The Trail Duster, the Trail Duster was a Ram Charger that was
was Plymouthite. Right. There was the Plymouth version of the Ram Charger was the Trail Duster. I was sure that the Warlock was a Plymouth, but I could be wrong.
No, Plymouth hasn't done a pickup in the U.S. since the 60s. Dodge was always that brand and then became Ram because Fiat was going to, in my opinion, close all the rest of them.
What was the Plymouth pickup in the 60s?
It's kind of like the Mercury in that. It might have been a Canadian thing or something, but no, Plymouth did trucks at some point.
The Canadian Dodge trucks were Fargos. Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about, there were Plymouth pre-war trucks, right? Like the PT series, which is where the PT Cruiser name came from. And obviously the Trail Duster is a truck. I don't know. Or maybe they just sold it through Plymouth dealers and it didn't say Dodge on it.
Yeah, Disapproving Cat said it was definitely a Dodge Dave. The modern Ram did a Warlock trim. Yeah, and the modern Ram, because in 80, actually, I think my dad told me at one point, I could be wrong. If he's listening, he can comment, that he actually almost bought a 79 Little Red Express for the company as its first company vehicle, which would not have made sense because he ended up buying a Power Wagon, an 80 Power Wagon with a snowplow on it because he wanted a snowplow because of the winter of 78 in Illinois. And we pretty much he owned a snowplow pretty much from that point until 10 years ago when his 96 Ram failed on him. And the Power Wagon was also brought back in current. Actually, you might still be able to buy a Power Wagon in Ram trim. So
What do you?
Oh, yeah. All of those companies.
Though?
What'd you say, Derek?
I said, but what do you classify as a truck? Because what about the Plymouth Arrow from the 1970s? The Mitsubishi powered.
Well, if I was to say, if you do that, I guess you can get into the mid 80s with the Ram 50, and there was a Plymouth version of it also. So we're talking full size trucks. We're talking real trucks.
Well, somebody keeps getting booted out of the conversation. So
it's how dangerous you are.
Yeah, Jason Hill remembers the blizzard of 78 in Cleveland, Ohio. You remember it there? Either in Michigan there?
I've seen photos of it, but we were both like 4 years in the future in 1978.
Yeah, it was like, I've seen the pictures from my family that mom and dad took.
My parents got married in April of 1978.
You youngins.
Wow,
Yeah.
my parents got married in 74.
Well, we keep talking ages here and time travel and things. And I was driving down the interstate yesterday and I got thinking, and this is really going to be out of Dave's wheelhouse. Cars today, we've lived through a period that, there's not going to be any collectible cars. There's not going to be any collectible cars, all these Japanese things, And now all of a sudden we've got CRXs and Eclipses and 3000 GTs and all this stuff from the late 80s and 90s that are collectible. What is being sold today that you might see as a collectible in the future that's that oddball out? Nobody would have bet in 89 that a CRX would be $100,000 car in 2025. What do we see today? Because what got me thinking here is I was passing a Toyota Camry on the interstate with the TRD package. So it's got the blacked out roof and it's got the spoiler on the back and it's got a little splitter on the front and it's got a slight aero kit to it. And it, it's TRD. It's like an AMG package on a Mercedes. And The
Yeah.
AMG appearance package doesn't do anything to add to the value or collectability of most Mercedes.
The big shocker here is that TRD is not just a truck thing. Because the only thing I ever see that on is Tacomas, but I guess that's just a function of where I live.
TRD is Toyota Racing.
Toyota Racing Development. I know, but I've just never seen I've seen Camrys, but up here, Camrys are just something you drive because you care about practicality and fuel efficiency.
You don't necessarily care about fuel efficiency. The Camry that she owns gets the worst gas mileage out of all the vehicles we have.
Wow.
Which is high 20s.
And is it a TRD?
No, it is not.
Oh, so how much does the turd get, do you think?
I bet it gets the same because I don't think there's any engine enhancement to it. I just think it's an appearance package.
It just looks cool. So it's like the 70s, the tape and stripes muscle car.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say, Dave, is that, I think what it winds up being is, like the 1970s, centennial, bicentennial cars. They had all the special red, white, and blue packages and, all those that were coming around in the mid 70s to celebrate 1976.
Jason said it wouldn't be any GM products because everything they do in limited numbers ends up in the thousands. And that's kind of what I'm talking is if, limited production or, Miatas are always going to be there. The BRZ Toyota 86, those will probably be collectible. We're going to have our various Mustangs and Camaros and that are going to be collectible. And throw out all the, Ferraris and Lambos and R8s and things like that. Those, definitely will have some collectability about them. It'll be interesting because of the amount of computer and hardware and how will they last. But, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Is that TRD version of the Camry going to be the collectible Camry in the future? Is the Fiat Abarth, is that going to be, that if the Fiat 500 becomes collectible, of course, that'll be the one people want. But do you think there's going to be a market for it? Will the Alfa Romeo Giulia become collectible?
I think the lessons.
I think that all the performance package vehicles will likely be collectible, like Disapproving Cat says, the Cadillac V Series, the performance packaged Abarths, things like that. But I think I'm going to say what Dave was about to say, which is I think we can have a good guess on a lot of them. And, like you already said, John, Camaros, Mustangs, Corvettes, those are all going to be American cars that people are going to keep. McLaren, Ferrari, name off those are cars that are going into collections. They're going to be in collections. But then it's going to be the oddballs out, right? It's going to be the John, Dave, Derek's, Clayton's, Jason's, all those guys where, back in 1910, who was sitting around going, yeah, that 1910 Duryea buggy yacht's going to be in some guy's collection one day. It wasn't. It was a throwaway car that just stuck around, and now a couple of us have them in our collections. So I think it's going to be hard to guess which ones are going to be the classics all the way through, because I think it just depends on what people like. What's going to be, some kid's poster on their bedroom wall right now, is going to be what they're going to want to collect in the future. And to go to the comment you made about all of the electronics and things, and how are they going to keep running? I think we have to remember that the mechanics of the future are computer engineers today. They're the kids going into computer programming, computer, all of the computer sciences, things like that are going to turn into the collectors that have a decent amount of money because they're going into a job that's going to be needed and already is. And they're going to be also the guys that are going to become the kind of at-home mechanics, because they're going to go into these cars that are run by computers. They're going to hook up and they're going to know how to read it, and they're going to go in there and program things. And if they need to rebuild something, they're going to rebuild it. So I think the future of the at-home mechanic or the collector mechanic is going to be the computer engineers. And just to wrap this up, Jason, yeah, thanks a lot, buddy. That was the whole intent with mine. And yeah, I don't have it.
So my view of this is that if we view collectability as there being a collector market for these cars, a la the 911 or a la K series, D series Chevy pickup trucks right now, that sort of thing, then what you have to look at is what sold really well and what people wanted in the car magazines at the time. That's exactly what the market says. Copo Camaros are hot because Hot Rod magazine said Copo Camaros were hot in 1969. Ergo, everybody's got to have a Copo Camaro down the line. The CRX will be hot because Car and Driver said the CRX was hot when it came out in the 80s or 90s. Ergo, it'll always be the collector darling going down the line. Now, if you want something that's got the capability of being a kind of under the radar collectible, I'd be looking for things that are adjacent to that share parts, that can maybe be upgraded in the same way. But really, I mean, the market cares about originality and rarity and desirability when it was new, because these are not people that are going out on a limb to find hipster collectibles. That's always going to be a niche, and that's a place where I'm going to thrive and Derek's going to thrive, because we like these oddball cars. But if you define collectability like most people do in terms of money, that's where you look. You say, I'm going to invest in these cars because they were hot 5 years ago, and right now they're nadir, but I expect in another 20 somebody will want them on the collector market, and I'm going to be the guy to supply them.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's just something that has crossed my mind, and the questions are always there, and it's the same questions that, me being older, that we were asking ourselves in the 90s. The collector, is the car collector going to be there? We had some things thrown out in the comments. The Cube cars, the Nissan Cube, the Scion XB, the Kia Soul. Actually, I'm thinking about going and looking at a Scion XB on Saturday. I could agree with that because they're unique and such. With a Tesla Roadster got thrown out there, and I think the Tesla Roadster, the Tesla Model S probably are gimmes. Will a Model 3 be? That'll be the Austin Healey bug eye. You know, the S's will go up in value or become super collectible, and then the bottom feeders will get the Model 3. I don't know. It's like I said, it's just, I see, and obviously Dave doesn't see it because he lives up in the special Northwest. Maybe he sees it with Subaru stuff. But the TRD, I've seen the Camry, I've seen the TRD Tercel, or what's the little one called now? Maybe it is the Toyota Corolla. Yeah, the TRD Corolla. And I'm not talking about the $40,000 hatchback Corolla. I can't think of what Toyota calls their performance stuff right now. But Jason said something about the Dodge Caravan. I actually just saw a 1990 Dodge Caravan 4-speed with like 22,000 miles for sale.
Yep. I think, to be honest with that, though, I think the Dodge Caravan is already, I think minivans are already collectible, of the early, kind of first generation minivans.
It's amazing to me the number.
I think they're collectible already. There's people out there looking for them.
The number of Astros that are still for sale on Facebook Marketplace. early caravans are hard to come by. You actually have to be looking in the collectible vein. And Aerostars, the original Dustbuster car, if you can find one running in good shape, because they were mid 80s Fords, which weren't the most stellar vehicles on the planet. Though I think, but we're again, now we're looking at stuff that's 40 years old, 30 to 40 years old. So they can already have antique tags. I'm talking about things that are 2 to 3 years old. But it's just food for thought. If you have ideas, just keep dumping them into the comments. Even after the show, we go back and review those all the time. I did have another question, unless one of you guys have a topic you want to throw out.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Cool. Keep going.
My podcast, I can do what I want. In about a month and a half, I'll be opening a retail store that is oriented to men's gifts, cigar accessories, whiskey mixing kits, smoking kits, golf accessories, leather bags, things that men would want as presents, because after working in a cigar shop for a dozen years, Father's Day, birthdays show up and people come in. We don't know what to get them because the things today and Amazon doesn't deliver today, at least in Birmingham. You in Atlanta and Chicago, yeah, your exceptions. So I'm opening this retail shop, and I mean, I've got thousands upon thousands of dollars of inventory already stocked in my warehouse, and that I'm trying to figure out guys' decor. How do I display these? I've tried looking industrial furniture. Can't really find anything. I don't want black pipe with 2-inch thick boards on it that are, stuck to the wall or whatever. If you were to display something like that, what am I missing? I mean, I can't get a Snap-on toolbox and have every other drawer open or anything. I can't get, I'm trying to figure out, how would you display things in your garage, or how would you display things in your hunting room or such? You guys have any ideas?
I was just going to say, where's the, I didn't hear anything about the M16 and,
Oh, I've got
bases of bullets, and
I've got
really dig deep.
Well, I've got the bullet ice cubes. They look like bullets. They're metal bullets that you freeze, you throw into your drink so that it chills your drink, but it doesn't dilute your drink. I showed you the little tire mug a few weeks ago on the show. I mean, I could go through tons and tons of stuff. I've got watch stuff, and when I say golf accessories, I'm not talking gloves and things like that. The things you can get at Dick's Sporting Goods, no, I don't have that. The stuff that you can get at Walmart, no, I don't have that. I have very unique, and some of the stuff is ungodly expensive because the idea is to get it to everything being ungodly expensive. But
so I guess my question is going to be, what way do you want the brand to go? Like because what I'm thinking is you could either go a more serious route where you think about the decor and it's, you think cigar, I'm going to think like, dark brick earth tones, some very, yeah. Or you could go the comical route and have like, joke candles around that are like, dirty oil scented and fresh cut grass. You could go the like kind of joking route with not with that they were gifts, but they were the ambiance around the gifts.
Well, you say that. I actually have garage scented candles, cigar shop.
Okay, well, never mind. There you go.
Whiskey scented candles. Because one of the things people, men or women, when they come into the cigar shop, they go, "Oh, I love that smell." And then the next thing is, I hate the smoke. And I got thinking one day, there's got to be a candle that has that scent. So I've got some of those candles and that. It's not necessarily joking. It's scented. And I've got various beard oils and waxes and men's soaps. And
Okay, I'm going to say this: a good beard oil. I might buy it from you. I like a good beard oil.
I
It's
even have a book here in the
nice.
stack and I could reach down and grab it because I'm really good at that in this show, it seems, on recipes to make your own beard oils.
I'm going to need that.
So I couldn't tell you what it's going to cost. It just came in the other day.
Yeah, just send it to me as a gift. I'll review it for the website. I'll give it a nice review.
And I'm placing an order for mugs that look like patinaed oil cans and that, Sinclair oil cans.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
Things like that. Trying not to make it too cigar and car oriented. I could easily fill the booth that way. But I've got to keep in mind there's people that have interests beyond what I have, and sometimes that's difficult. But I just can't figure out a good way to display it. I've got a gorgeous multi-$1,000 cabinet unit all picked out to do a lot of this, but I'm looking for maybe some unique ideas.
I mean, if you're looking for easy to obtain, I like the bakery rack shelves that they sell at like Home Depot. They're, as rugged as like, steel shortage shelves for your garage, but just a little more aesthetically pleasing. Otherwise, I kind of use a variety of like scrounged cabinets and the wooden crates that you buy at Joann Fabrics. The ones I'm talking about. They're about, yay big by.
Right.
We stack them together and use them as bookcases and all kinds of things.
Then all of a sudden you inspired me back to the Viviani garages of the 70s and 80s with the cinder blocks and then a 20-foot board and then the cinder block on top of it and a 20-foot board. Yep. And that's how we made our garage shelving.
Yeah. I mean, that actually, if you substitute red bricks for the cinder blocks, you've got something that every hipster would appreciate. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, this
is Edison bulbs.
This is a productive conversation. Too bad Joann's closed, but I do know the place in town that's buying a lot of the Joann warehouse stuff. They're buying all the leftovers things.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, if you drive up to Nashville with a truck or a van or something, there's some scrap lumber and pallets and things I can load into there for you. Just pull around the back of the museum.
No, I would rather buy new wood and let it patina outside for a few days than have to disassemble
patinaed wood with nail holes. Come on, man. We had to clear out the parking garage because we're renovating it.
And so
I hate it when that happens.
Jason selling gas pumps. That
Big news out of Lane Motor Museum. The parking garage is closing and it's being renovated into 25,000 square feet of exhibit space. You're now going to get.
But you can't come see it because there's no place to park.
We have a big parking lot out back, and we put a new one up front.
Oh,
Jason did ask
outside.
Yeah.
Jason did ask about the no driving gloves coffee mugs. We had those available a few months ago, but nobody took us up on them. If you want to email me, Jason, I have a few of those here. But part of this new business, and that's what I've been working on a lot of this week, is developing the website. A lot of the no driving gloves and Small Business Birmingham paraphernalia will be available through this store and that website also. And I've got a couple dozen t-shirt designs. Basically, the graphics that we use for every episode, a lot of those I'm taking and making into shirts. They're print on demand, so if nobody buys it, it's no skin off my back. But if you find one of our backdrops irresistible and you must own it, there's a good chance there will be a shirt available. And as that shop goes online, the goal is to have the online shop up August 1st. And I've said it before, we're dead serious here because I have tons of money invested into this and there's no going back now.
There's always going back. I like Disapproving Cat's suggestion that we get no driving gloves, and sell them. And
We
I
do
think
have no. We do have no
we need
driving gloves.
They need to have the little button on them that just says NDG, and then the tag can say have the no driving gloves logo.
No, we have no driving gloves. Driving gloves. They're just invisible. You send us 1995, and we don't send you anything.
I like the idea of actual driving gloves.
I can probably do that, Derek. I actually should probably order some for the shop. Driving gloves. I won't buy golf gloves because you can buy golf gloves at, at Dick's or Academy or insert your sporting goods store.
What if Dick's sold auto racing accessories? Now, what a world that would be. Go in there, get your fire suit, your goggles and helmet, whatever you need.
You kind of go, why not? Because it is sports.
Right?
You go in there.
Motor racing always ends up outside of regular sporting.
Get your racing helmet or something there. Of course, they don't sell football helmets or anything like that. So they probably don't want to take the liability of selling you a fire suit and then burning up.
I mean, as long as you're selling
driving shoes, they could sell those kind of accessories.
Yeah, I mean, you can sell motoring accessories, like, you know, for driving your sports car on the roads rather than driving at 10/10 on the track. Driving loafers, driving gloves, moisture wicking, performance enhancing polo shirts, anti-chafing whatnot for your nether region.
So here's just a thought. Has anybody actually pitched the idea to Dick's? Maybe
they won't return my calls anymore.
Maybe we need to pitch the idea.
Why would we want to pitch the idea? Don't have any product to sell them.
Okay,
all of a sudden we become the middleman between Simpson
and
and
get
Dick's.
the product in. We got to get the product in or make it, and then move into selling it.
Okay. I'll get online tomorrow or next Monday with Simpson. I'll order $1 million worth of their stuff so that we have a warehouse of stuff we can sell to Dick's.
No, we need to contract with a factory to build something that looks like the Simpson product, but is much cheaper. And then we sell it to Dick's. And then we skip town before people start burning it down.
What about my store fixtures, guys?
Oh, well, that should be under a separate business.
This is the way no driving gloves goes, man.
Yeah, we're rotating. Tell me what I need for store fixtures. What am I missing for garage furniture?
I mean, what kind of space are you
scantily clad people? That way,
I'm open to
there are
all.
no scantily clad people in my garage. I've checked.
We have a very limited space in the first couple opening locations, but I'm open to any ideas because I can build upon it. I mean, I've got that Lotus 23 rear clip, which is 4 feet by 4 feet that I've looked at cutting up and making into a table or 2 tables or something.
Oh yeah, I mean, like a riff on the chair back or on the couch, car back couch ideas that were so popular in the 90s. Yeah, I mean, actually, you know, have you ever been to the Barrett Jackson auction in Scottsdale? And you walk through the one room and there's just like loads and like every kind of man cave accessories you can think of in there. And I'm not saying you should incorporate antlers into your decor, but it seems to work for a lot of people, including Gaston from Sleeping Beauty. So
right now I'm trying to get Race Deck to call me back because I'm thinking of doing the floor in Race Deck. But I will only do it if they will give me an affiliate program. I'm not going to buy Race Deck and let somebody go, oh, cool. And then they just go and order it. I want some affiliate residual. I'm not going to stock, 9,000 square feet of Race Deck for people, but you can order it. You can see a little sample and then you can order it. But, so I'm working a couple of different things. I just can't think of what to put the items on. Of course, if it's a guide thing, I ought to just put a mural of a bedroom type thing or a living room, and then just throw everything into the booth because God knows we don't put anything away.
That's a good one, actually. Yeah, just kind of disorganization. But I was also going to say, I mean, if you're getting like the oil filter mugs and things, some 55-gallon drums laying around, used
Yeah, I mean, food
as
grade ones,
tables,
because they
things
wouldn't
like
have
that.
residual stuff in
As
them.
you were saying that, it might be worth. All of a sudden, I thought about eBay and getting. If you remember the old gas stations where they had the oil cans out by the pumps,
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
totally.
do that and display the mugs in it.
Mhm.
It's
Petroleum
got-
honest stuff gets really
mugs
pricey
and-
really fast, though.
Yeah, the mugs or also the candles could be done that way.
Mhm.
And now I'm thinking I ought to sell beef jerky and get one of the Anco windshield wiper things, and get
Oh,
these,
that's a good idea.
2 or 3 foot long things of beef jerky. So we've talked about a few things there. If anybody hasn't noticed, and may apologize to the audio listeners or audio show listeners, every episode of No Driving Gloves, with the exception of episode 394, or maybe it's 95, is now up audio. Unfortunately, it all released on the same day.
Oh, my.
So if you are
It's a lot of
all of a
listening in
sudden
one day.
Get on it.
inundated with, excuse me, 96, 397 did not get released. I lost the artwork for it, so I've got to find the artwork. Everything else is now online to listen to audio wise. And you can also go through and you can look at the graphics, and if you see anything there, send me a message and we'll make sure we have a shirt available. So what were we talking about right before the show that I said would be an interesting discussion point? We were talking museums. Dave said something. Future of auto museums.
I just was surprised that anybody was considering opening a museum these days when so many good ones have closed and others are struggling to survive. I mean, it just seems like, what do you know that the rest of us don't on how to make a museum survive?
Well, Derek and I actually have addressed this on an episode before, and it's the life of auto museums, especially auto museums. There's very few multi-decade transportation museums. You might have the Gilmore, you have the Henry Ford, you probably will have the Peterson, but as the collectors pass, the museums go away and new collectors come in and want to display their wares, because cars, in my opinion, these mega collectors that have the ability to start a museum, it's a number one, they have egos and they want to go, see what I have, and show off to their friends. There's obviously business reasons and stuff behind it, but I don't think sometimes that's the real motivating factor. But I just think it's the normal cycle. There's always going to be museums, auto museums, transportation museums closing, and transportation museums opening, just because of the nature of it. Art museums, art galleries, these sculptures, history museums, they're a different gambit, different thing. You don't have the Jefferson County Museum of Transportation. You don't have the New York Auto Museum. You have the New York Center for Arts or whatever. I just don't. Transportation's just always been different, and I think it's just always cycling, which is good because there's always something new to go visit, and there's always a change to the collection. Do you disagree with me, Derek, or am I nuts?
As always, I agree with some, disagree with other parts. I mean,
Well, you're always half right.
Across the board in the museum field, and actually I would say in the art museum world, other than the well-established art museums, which there are numerous, we've got MoMA, we've got the Cleveland Museum of Art, we've got the Detroit Museum. I mean, you can go through all of those, but there are kind of the same situation. House museums are the same way. There are these small places that are a collection of artworks that are a gallery or a small museum, and it's a private collector that wants to open up and show off the collection, and eventually that person dies, the family doesn't care, and it just kind of dissipates, and maybe some of it gets donated to a major museum and the rest gets sold, whatever. The problem is you have to have the right intent if you're going to start a museum out of your collection. I don't care if that's an art collection, if it's a natural history collection, if it's an American history collection. Founding a museum, it has intent behind it. That intent is exactly why they have set up the 501c3 educational nonprofit status that a lot of museums get. Now, we can look at what's coming in the future and question whether that's going to exist. That's a whole nother show. But
the tax policy show, that'll be a fun one.
Yes, that's going to be an interesting one. But the problem, a lot of these small transportation museums that open up, they don't open with the right intent. They're exactly what John said. They're a guy or a person. I'm going to say a person. Okay. I'm not going to label it guy, gal, whatever. A person, a collector who has a whole bunch of cars, and they think, oh, the world wants to see my cars. And they open the doors and they think everybody's going to come in. A few people are going to come in, see it, and never come back. And it's going to dwindle. Unless you have educational information, educational programming, an exhibit schedule, changing exhibits, you are not going to survive. You cannot just park a bunch of cars in a building and think you have a museum, because that's not what it is. It's a private collection open to the public. If you have educational programming, you have exhibits that bring interest and bring stories and bring visitors and what I prefer to call guests to the museum, then you have a museum, because you are educating, you're telling stories, and you're adding to the greater social and cultural impact of that community that you are in. If you just open your doors and you have a pole barn full of cars, you're not a museum. You can use the word museum all day long, but you are not at the root of it. What is a museum? And those are mostly the museums that close, are the ones that just think they can plop some college kid at the front desk, take $10 for admission, and say, please don't touch the cars, enjoy your walk around. And there's very little signage, exhibit labels. There's no thematic exhibits that keep people interested, tell a greater story. Those are the places that people don't go back to because they don't care. That's the problem. Sorry, did I rant too much?
No.
I was waiting for Dave's comment on it. Dave had the question.
No, I am better informed now. I understand that the cycle, the museum industry is essentially cyclical and dependent on patrons with
actually no. The problem is no museum can exist on its gate. Their admissions.
I don't mean patrons by visitors. I mean like a patron in the classical Renaissance Italy sense of, I have lots of money. I care about you existing. You're dependent on me. I'm your sugar daddy. I mean patron. So
we call those kind of patron. We call those our donors and members.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Same sense. We live in a world where unless someone very wealthy cares about a thing, it doesn't get to happen. And so we have a cycle of people who get wealthy, establish a collection of cars, either do a good job displaying them or don't do a good job displaying them. And eventually the museum closes unless they did such a good job displaying them that new donors take over to fill that gap. But there's probably only ever going to be maybe 6 museums total in the country. And you can even count the Henry Ford as that type of museum, because really, what did we do? He collected everything he cared about, including buildings, put it together and said, now make it a museum, because I wanted to own this
No,
stuff.
he didn't. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. What was Greenfield Village and Henry Ford Museum initially? Actually, what was the Edison Institute originally, Dave?
Are you talking about the school function?
Yes, it was not open to the public at first. It was a school. It was through public pressure.
I'm going to say it was a
Henry
school.
Ford opened.
Second.
No,
No.
it was not
Wait.
Henry's intent.
Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I
No.
finish? Can I finish? Can I finish? Henry Ford had a bunch of money, liked to collect stuff, needed a reason, opened a school, then was forced to turn it into a museum. But the overarching reason is that Henry Ford wanted a steam tractor and didn't need a steam tractor. He wanted a bunch of damn dishes, didn't need a bunch of damn dishes. He wanted a bunch of buildings from all over the country, didn't need a bunch of buildings from all over the country. But he had the money, he had the land, and he said, people said, Henry, what are you doing? He said, I'm opening a school, because them bankers, they ruined public schools, so I'm going to open a school, get my education correct. And yeah, I guess eventually you weirdos who are all nosy about my collection come look at it, but only because you're making me. That's pretty accurate rendition of how Henry Ford sounded also, even though he was from Dearborn.
That's sad. I didn't realize he was from the South.
Yeah.
Is that how you won all your court cases as a lawyer?
Yeah, is by my really good Matlock impression. No, but I'm sorry, but I mean, it really is the case here that he left again. Is that it's still the same story. You get a rich patron who wants to display his collection, and he does it for a while, and sometimes it outlasts him. I mean, Bill Harris, the same thing, except it didn't outlast him, except in a very small sense.
It was a school. Bye. I'm back.
Second, it was a collection first, and then it was a school.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it was a collection of stuff first with the intent to build the school and then open a museum. I thought you were saying it was a museum first.
No, I'm saying it was a rich guy's collection of stuff first, and then he had to come up with a reason to have it, and the school and later the museum became the reason.
And the history we teach today isn't worth a tinker's damn. History
is more or less bunk, except the history we are making today. This is actually kind of why all of the big three have really poor, all of American industry has really poor heritage programs, because they don't want you to think about the cool stuff they used to do, because then you'll start thinking about what crap they build today.
Exactly.
Mercedes and such don't have that problem.
Yeah, Mercedes just wants you to think they built the world's first car.
Not them, just the guy that they got part of their name from. Or you're going to go like...
It wasn't even the world's first self-propelled vehicle. It was just the first successful
internal combustion. You're putting all your money on the
combustion.
The steam carriage.
No, there were other internal combustion self-propelled vehicles before Carl Benz. He just built one that was completely built from scratch with the intent of being one, and that's what allowed him to patent it and become successful. Everybody else just mounted engines in buggies, and But anyway, I digress.
So it comes down to intent. Mercedes is descended from the guy that intended to build the world's first car. And
Sure.
Not from one of the people who accidentally built one and then got forgotten. Kind of like the guy who was actually first to the gramophone and actually first to the light bulb. We're always hearing about these people, but not we're always looking to take away the credit from the person who got it, aren't we?
Yeah, and where did that Tesla name come from again? Where?
Some crackpot Serbian from the turn of the century.
Yeah. Huh.
Anyway, I've had enough of this. I want to go do 4th of July stuff. I bid you gentlemen good night.
Well, I was going to say, Jason here just commented he was at Barber yesterday. I don't know if you listened to last week's show, Jason. I was at Barber and I made very similar observations as you're stating. Jason said, I was just at Barber yesterday. They seem to be getting huge. Hope it doesn't get lost in itself. I thought the motorcycles, there were too many on the floor. And the basement level with the cars, which I got there slightly after the tour, it looks crowded and cluttered when the atrium has much more room for cars. They just, I don't know, not my job anymore. But yeah, I do agree with you. And that place is definitely undergoing that transition. And we'll see what the next 4 or 5 years brings. And I've said repeatedly that Brian Case, who is now the new director, I think he's an excellent person for the job with a real passion for conservation and museum. And what Brian doesn't know, Brian is willing to learn. I was going to ask Derek his opinion, but Derek fell out here. We'll give him 1 second to come back. And so we'll get Derek back. Did you have anything different than what I was saying about Brian Case? You've met the man a few times too, or
I met him. I like him. Seems like a good guy. Haven't had many conversations with him, but I hope to in the future.
So, yeah.
And with that, I'm going to say goodnight because who knows when I'm going to get booted next.
Yep. Dave's already said goodnight. And you know what? I'm going to tell you, we're done here. So it's time to get off your ass, go burn some gas because we are